Hello and welcome to Chats with Chelsi. I'm your host, Chelsi Bennett. I'm so honored that you joined us today because we are beginning our weeks-long series about mental illness and mental health. October 10th is World Mental Health Day, and so we will be having a real, raw, honest conversation about mental health. Three incredible women said yes to joining me for the first ever Chats with Chelsi panel. We'll be talking about their journeys, how it's affected their relationships, the stigmas, and when they decided to get help, professional help, and if they did. There's so much that we'll cover over the course of this month, so be sure that you're tuned in. But let's start off with part one with learning more about our panelists. Let's tune in. Well, ladies, thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to have you here. This is a topic that is too often pushed under the rug, kept in the closet. So I just want to start off and say thank you for your boldness to be here today. But let's start off. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Where are you from? Brittney.
Sure.
Your name. Introduce yourself.
That's the easy part. We'll get to that first. I'm Brittney Quarles. I'm in marketing and advertising. And I'm from Woodbridge, Virginia. Been in Richmond for work for about 6 years and some change. Looking forward to having a wedding in a couple months.
Yes.
So that's exciting and stressful at the same time. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Brittney.
Very nice. My name is LaShawanda Moore. I'm originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm a wife. I'm a mother of 4. I'm a retired engineer and leader in a Fortune 500 company, and I'm now an entrepreneur, full-time entrepreneur. I own a family entertainment park, 29,000 square foot of amazingness.
Wow.
And I'm also an empowerment speaker, organizational development coach, and consultant. And I also help people with personal development.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I have to follow that.
I'm Quelina Jones. All my friends call me Q, so you guys can too. I am a mother of 2 amazing, beautiful, brilliant daughters. I have a 20-month-old and a 20-year-old daughter. I am currently in school full-time. I'm also a writer, recent author of the debut of the debut of my children's book, Nana and Magic High, and life coach, as well as an actor.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I love the diversity in the ladies of you sitting here this evening. So yes. So I want to start off with, how do you define mental health, mental illness? Is there a difference? What does that look like for you? How would you define that if you were explaining it to a stranger on the corner?
I guess so I don't know this to be, what's in Wikipedia. But when I think about mental illness and I break it down, illness is a sickness. And mental deals with the mind, the psyche, right? So there is a sickness with the mind. And this sickness can be seen in the form of depression, stress, anxiety, etc. And you can choose to have it diagnosed and be clinically called, clinically depressed or clinically ill.
Yeah.
And then mental health, I think, is just your overall sanity and well-being of your mind, just like your health of your body. So I think of it as taking care of your body, and so it's the well-being of the mind. I don't know, I made it up.
That's how it sounds. It sounds. I think it's the first thing you think of is being sick. Like, I'm going to the doctor, I'm ill, I don't feel like myself. And I feel like for me, that's how mental illness feels. Like, I'm not myself. I'm kind of looking at myself like, that's not who I was, that's not who I am, that's not who I was supposed to be. So for me, it was like, okay, I need to find where Brittney is because she is not in this body or in this mind. In this mind right now. She's not here. So for me, it was, I physically do not feel like myself, and I need to go get help in various forms to be well, like you said, be well again, and not feel sick anymore mentally.
Just to piggyback on what these two ladies have already said, to me, illness is like with anything else, like with a cancer. It's diagnosed, we need to treat it now. There's an immediate need, let's get treatment, whether it's in the form of medication or seeing a doctor or some other more holistic approach. But then when I think about mental health, it's just like our health and the preventative things that we do. Like we get our annual physicals to stay ahead of any illness. I feel that way about mental health. For me at this point, therapy is preventative. It's maintenance. I go not because I have an illness, but because I want to stay healthy. I want to be proactive in taking care of my mental health.
So I was preparing thank you ladies for providing that definition of how you see mental health, mental illness. I came across this statistic. 13.2% of the U.S. population is African Americans. 16% of African Americans have a diagnosable mental illness, which equates to about 6.8 million Black men and women, teenagers in the United States. When you hear that, how do you relate to that? What are your thoughts?
Now, we have a lot of people walking around suffering silently.
That's good.
Because I just can't imagine that many of us getting help and really authentically showing up and saying, admitting that there's an issue.
Right. And it's generations of African Americans.
So,
I think, and we might touch on this later, I'm happy that our generation, late 20s, early to mid 30s, we are now, overall, I think, opening up to therapy. There's Black Girls podcasts for therapy. There's more African American women and men therapists to actually find out there. And I hope that, I think we're more open to it than our grandparents.
Yes.
We're more open than our parents were. And so I hope that generations down the line, hopefully our children, will be open to it as well. And it'll just kind of go from there. But I'm excited about our generation because even in my girlfriend circles from college, even my coworker girlfriends, we're talking about therapy. We're encouraging, like, girl, go.
The millennials, right? Okay, so I'm a Gen Xer. And we don't necessarily in our circles talk about that. Right. But I think that Gen Xers were the beginning of, you know what, this is okay to get a therapist.
Yes. Yes.
We all need a little help sometimes.
Everyone does.
You have to have a posse.
Yes.
People that help you out.
And my good therapist.
And a therapist. Just like you have a hairstylist.
Yes.
You have a pastor, maybe.
Yeah.
You have your therapist.
Doctor.
You have a coach. You have a doctor. Exactly.
I call it the village.
The
It takes a village.
It takes a village.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
But what's so interesting, so you guys are talking about having that person ongoing and the preventative piece to it. For me, it's like when it's a dire need, then you go get help. Yeah, it's like I'll go get a physical, but I hadn't thought about it like that until we're really sitting here. Like, you know what? I don't go for an annual checkup with my therapist or a quarterly checkup with my therapist. I only go when there's a problem.
And that's how my mother was with her health. And she, unfortunately passed from one of the most preventable and curable cancers. She died from colon cancer. And had she done her annual physicals, we would have caught it and it would have completely changed her outcome. And that's how I feel about my mental health. It's like, no, I have to go.
Yeah.
I have to go.
Absolutely.
Something that's so key as I'm listening to you all's stories, 3 Black women, is this is something in our community.
because I'm thinking about conversations with some of my Caucasian girlfriends, and they do have quarterly check-ins with their therapists. It's a part of the budget. The family goes together. They go individually. They go as siblings.
Wow.
And so I've heard it, but as you all were talking, it reminded me that this is something, and I'm hoping our discussion over the course of this month will break down some of those barriers, will break down some of these silos of how we sometimes as African Americans feel that we have to carry burdens and weights and have to have this image that we have it all together, when the people sometimes that look like they have it all together is because they've been on somebody's couch for it out. Tell us your mental health journey. Q, we'll start with you.
Wow. For a very long time, I am a child sex abuse and rape survivor. And for a very long time, I grew up thinking that sex equated to love. And that's how I approached my relationships. As you can imagine, it's very toxic, very dysfunctional. And I thought that sex was love even when it wasn't pleasurable for me. I entertained it because I was in a very codependent state. Sex was introduced very early to me, and I didn't even realize it was a problem for a very long time. Therapy wasn't something that we talked about. Mental health, mental illness, my parents grew up, my mother especially grew up in an era where what happens in your house stays in your house. So I was abused by a family member, someone my family, my parents and myself, we trusted. And so to have this person say, I love you, and then do this thing, I coupled together the two, because sex is love. And so I grew up thinking that, and I didn't think for a very long time that I was affected by it. And I had these very toxic relationships. And then I realized as I got older, and having been in a corporate environment, I was exposed to different kinds of people and to benefits and resources I had access that I didn't have. And I learned about an employee assistance program, and for the first time, we just had a therapist on site, and I just decided to go and talk to her. And just in talking to her about my relationship at the time, I just realized this is kind of normal. How I show up in my relationships, how I show up in life, this is not normal, and this isn't the woman that I want to be. And that started it for me. It has been a winding road to include not just suicidal thoughts, but a suicide attempt as well. I'll never forget that day 5 years ago when I attempted to take my own life. And it was a very dark time that was a long time coming. It wasn't a spur of the moment thing. It was a long time coming. And I'm grateful that I'm here, sitting here with you today to be able to tell my story.
Grateful to have you. When you said it was a long time coming, what were some of, obviously hindsight, but what were some of those things, those thoughts that were going through your mind that led up to the attempt?
For me, it's a sense of hopelessness. When you don't feel like, for me, I know I really struggled with purpose. Like, why was I here? My identity was so tied to other people. My happiness, my joy, I didn't feel, everything that made me who I was went on the back burner in a relationship. I morphed into whoever they needed me to be for that season in their lives until I didn't have anything of my own, anything for myself, because I had put it all on the shelf in a jar. We'll get to that later. Right now, this is who he needs me to be. This is who my girlfriends need me to be. Whatever. I was a giver and a helpmate to people that I didn't even realize was to my detriment. It was I was pouring from an empty cup.
Interesting. So my journey started in the 11th grade, and this was a spur of the moment decision to take my life. And I had had enough with life and feeling less than and feeling like I wasn't wanted. Not because my mom didn't demonstrate love to me, and she was amazing, right? She worked really hard, but it was other factors in our home that off and on that would cause me to feel less than. And there was one hard day, one Sunday morning, I had an encounter with my stepfather, and I had enough. And I was like, just want to be taken out. And so I went into the bathroom and, dumped all of his back pain medicine into my body. And, I remember waking up the next day in the hospital. And so then I knew that there was a reason that I was living and that I didn't die, because, painkillers can take you out, especially if you dump a whole bunch into your body. So I knew there was a reason, but yet from that point on, suicidal thoughts were there, because suicide became the way out when life got hard. And so it really wasn't until, it just kept on. Even after having children, I would have suicidal thoughts when life was really hard and I felt less than. And being an engineer, being in an environment in a white man's world, being in corporate and really feeling like, I could do it. I'm smart and intelligent, I could do it, but it just wasn't a good fit. And just feeling like I had made decisions in my life that I didn't really like or want. And so, needless to say, it really wasn't until August of 2018 that I went away and God spoke to me and clearly stated, do not ever think about taking your life again, because he had purpose for me. And so I haven't had any thoughts of suicide since August of 2018.
Over a year.
Yes, because, it has been.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you for that. I didn't even realize it. So here I am. Now, I can't tell you I haven't been mentally ill from time to time, especially as I transition from being a corporate employee to an entrepreneur. Because the mirror is put up in your face when you become an entrepreneur. Your stuff, all of your stuff comes out. Because you have to show up as an entrepreneur every day, confident. So needless to say, it's been a journey even now, but I'm not taking my life, because I know that God has purpose for me.
Yes.
And he enabled this time for me to be liberated so that I can serve him and help people who may be struggling.
When the sun sets free, it's free indeed.
Amen.
Yes. For me, when I knew I needed professional help was over a year ago. I was going into being 30, and I was already like, "Whoop, all right, here it goes. Here it goes. Here it goes." I thought I was a little different about it, maybe a little more excited. I was a little apprehensive, quite honestly, anxious about it. Just feeling like, have I done all the things that I thought I was going to do at 30? All those feelings, and family, and buy a home, and do all the right things. But I was sitting in the emergency room in a hospital bed for the third time in 30 days, which was odd, because I've been very blessed not to be in the ER a lot, not to be rushed there, put there for actual emergencies. And I was there because I had another severe panic attack where I literally thought I was going to die. I felt like I was having a heart attack. I thought my heart was literally going to fall out of my chest. And I looked at the doctor, I was in tears. I said, I think I'm going crazy. So I told him. And he was like, you're not, you're physically going to be okay. But I would suggest looking at some anxiety disorder brochures or things like that. And when he said disorder, that's when I was like, okay. Anxiety is one thing. We all get anxious, worried, stressed, and we're busy. But to have an anxiety disorder, or to be told you're in a state of anxiety that led to a physical panic attack, was scary for me, because your mind is powerful. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
But when your mind and your mental health starts to affect your body physically, that's when I knew I had to get real help. And when I started therapy, I started, of course, diving into where does this come from? Why do you have these anxious thoughts that affect your physical life, affects your daily behavior? And, I went back to my parents getting divorced. And I went back to, my dad walked out after 20 years of relationship, tore our family apart. And for me, it was like, he left, I had so much anxiety. And it was just, I wanted to hide, I wanted to be gone. That's where it came from. And I think I that was something I never dealt with until, it's been a year now. I've been, doing it for a year, but I had dealt with that. And so I would sabotage relationships. I would, try to, defense mechanism. Like if that doesn't work, if there, that institution that I loved, believed in, did not work, then what am I going to do? What do I have to look forward to? But that was, I guess, my two moments. Looking hindsight moment was that moment when that happened. But being an adult and just, saying, I can't do this anymore. This is urgent. And I can't keep putting it off and saying, well, everyone goes through it. It could be worse. People have bigger issues than mine. I couldn't do that anymore. So those were my kind of two reflective moments.
I appreciate your honesty and your transparency. And as you were chatting, Brittney, it even reminds me of some of my story of just not dealing with things and how it will literally eat you alive. And I think back to high school, and I literally had patches of hair that was missing from my head. We went to the doctor. They did all these tests, and the diagnosis was she's stressed and something's going on. And I wish I would have known about therapy before. I wish that it wasn't stuck in my mind, as you said, Q. What happens in this house stays in this house. Because yes, there's a time and a place to share your story, but this stuff literally will just eat us alive. So it was my hair. There were stomach issues. It was just, and they couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
Been there.
Me too. So I had a patch on this year. I'm not joking. It was right here. And I had acid reflux out of nowhere. I had to start these medications that was a Prilosec, and I had to take a beta blocker, and I had a heart monitor, I had a cardiologist. Like, it's not your heart. I'm like, well, thank God.
Right.
But what is it? And it just always led right back to stress and anxiety disorder. It's crazy what we do about it.
Same here with the stomach issues. The GI doctor sends me to the GYN. The GYN sends me back to the GI doctor, and test after test after test. I mean, my stomach would protrude to the point where it would look like I was like 6 months pregnant with no baby. But it was full stress.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. Stress.
You're at this point. We talked about your journey. We defined mental health, mental illness. How has it been sharing your journey, if you have, with those close to you?
Yeah. So my fiance has obviously watched this happen, right? And so, which is kind of a good thing on one level because he has kind of been there from the beginning of my realization I need help, and he's been, thank God, so supportive. And like, hey, I might not understand what you're going through. I may not get it. I might not feel it, but I want you to be healthy. I need you to be healthy, and whatever I can do to help that, I'm here. It was more for me, telling girlfriends is great, and venting is great, but I wasn't 100% ready with my closest friends to tell them this is what I've been going through at home. I wasn't there. That's why I also knew I needed a therapist because I wasn't there. I couldn't fathom telling them I'm having mental breakdowns in my home. Not because they wouldn't listen, not because they're not amazing, but just because I wasn't comfortable with that, with where I was, to tell them that. And it's been good. It was hard to my parents. I think mom is very close. Dad close too, but it's just different. Different relationships with mom and dad. And, I didn't want them to feel like I was blaming them for where I was, because that was like a catalyst for that. I didn't want that to happen. But once I opened up and shared, they were supportive. And once I find women like you all, once we share, sharing is so important. Not everybody, you know, but I've had more female angels in my life, angels on earth, that I've started sharing little tidbits. I felt compelled for some reason, God, to share little things with certain women in passing. And then you're like, wow, we're on the same journey. You were here, or vice versa. And I just found so much joy in sharing certain parts of my life with women that I did not know from Adam or Eve, because they too have been dealing with a lot of the same things. And that has been so helpful, sometimes more helpful than therapy has been, because you don't feel alone and you don't feel excluded. Yeah.
I remember when I first started therapy at my former employer, and my brother found out I was talking about being sexually abused. And he's very private. He's like my mom. She's like very private about a lot of stuff. And I remember his words to me. He said, I can't believe you would talk to a stranger about our stuff. And I remember feeling like, this isn't our stuff. This is my stuff. And I am the one struggling to carry it. Like, my back is literally breaking. And that was hard. But I know, because I know him and I know his heart and how much he loves me, it came from a place of his own fear of judgment of what people were going to say or think about our family if they knew. And it wasn't so much about him not wanting me to get the healing that I was worthy of. And so once we kind of broke that down, he said that I want you to be okay. And he's actually seeing a counselor, therapist.
Wow.
So yes, black man.
Yes.
Healthy,
Mentally healthy.
yes. When my mom passed, it was really, really hard for him. And yeah, he has decided to get some help, and I'm so proud of him because he has a son, a son, and he's in his 20s. His son's in his 20s, and for him to see his father making his mental health a priority, it's teaching him that it's okay as a young black man. So to have a therapist, to see a counselor, to seek out help. My girlfriends, they probably saw it before I did, but I'll never forget the night that I took the whole bottle of pills. My hair stood up on my arm as you said that, because it was so much similarities there. But I remember I was sitting in the parking lot on Broad Street, a vacant parking lot, and I just went through a devastating breakup. And it was, at the moment, it felt like it was the reason for the attempted suicide, but I now know that it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. It was like a shattered glass, and that was just the last little pebble to hit the window shield before it just went to pieces. But I was sitting in that car, and I took that bottle of pills, and I remember talking to my sister, and I was crying, and she sent the police to find my car, and they brought the ambulance. And all I remember is hearing my baby sister crying. I went black. And when I came to in the hospital, my best friend was walking through the door, and it was probably like 3 o'clock in the morning. And at that time, and she came through the door, and she was crying. My brother was standing beside me crying, and because they didn't think I was going to wake up. My blood pressure had dropped so low, they did not think I was going to come out of it.
Wow.
And so my best friend came through, and I was so ashamed. I woke up out here, and I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about this. I hear the machines beeping and the light kind of flickering above me, and I see her walking in, and she's crying, and I was so ashamed that I had done that, and I didn't want her to see me in that state. And the first thing she said, she threw up her hands. She was like, "No judgment, I promise. I won't say anything. Just please don't make me leave." Because I told her, I said, "I don't want you here." And she said, "Please, no judgment. I promise. I won't even say a word. Just I need to be here. Let me be here." And to find out, my family's in the waiting room and they're crying. I mean, like they literally think I'm dying. That was hard. But I think that was the moment where they realized that this is a real thing. Like what I've been struggling with, what I've been dealing with, it's a real, very real thing. And I needed help. And God has sent them to be my lifeline. They have been an incredible my journey to healing.
So my journey has been alone, and it's been me trying to figure it out. And I didn't really tell. I would tell bits. I was very picky about what I would say and who I would say it to. I really only have one girlfriend that really got a chance to see the deeper LaShawanda. Because see, on the outside looking in, it looks like I have it together, right? I mean, look at all the stuff that I've been able to accomplish, coming from, the projects of Louisiana to being an engineer in corporate America and a leader and running a direct sales business and multi-million-dollar sales and all of this, right? I look like I got it together, right? And so people are looking at my highlighted reels and not thinking or believing that I got stuff too that I'm doing. So really, it's only one person that would really get a chance to see deeper me, and I would kind of share some stuff. However, over the past 5 years or so being here, I went through a really difficult time in my career that really shifted things for me. And it was the hardest thing that I ever experienced in my life, it felt like it, while I was going through it. And my husband is actually the one, my children and my husband, they're the ones that witnessed it and were impacted by it. So when you find yourself yelling and impatient and just a bad mood walking into the house, because all day long I'm holding together with a smile on my face, right? Because I have to be that. No matter what's going on, I was smiling. And many people couldn't understand how are you smiling, because they saw what I was going through, right? And they were encouraged and inspired by it. And I felt like I had to be that way to encourage them. And so then I would get home though and just, and so it was just so hard for me to get up every day. And so my family, my kids experienced and witnessed the real deal, what was going on. And so in August of 2018, I was like, I've had enough. I tried to go to a therapist. Even when I went to the therapist, she was a white lady. And no offense, I love all people. But she just didn't understand. She could not relate. She couldn't help me. She was like, you got it together. Because once again, everybody thinks I have it together. Because I was able to do this and that and this and that. And I'm able to talk. I'm a good talker. Like I can, and I can tell you why and what. And then you're like, you got it all figured out. But I didn't. And so needless to say, in August, I was like, I need to go away and be with the Lord. And this was the first time in 15 years my husband and I were not together for our anniversary. He went to Louisiana with the kids, and I went to the mountains of Virginia. And I stayed there for 4 nights in a cabin. I rented a cabin and let the Lord love on me. And there were many things that happened. I journaled the event, the whole experience, and many things that happened throughout that confirmed that that's where I needed to be and that God was speaking to me. And he gave me clear instructions. And I asked him at the end to rescue me from corporate. And because I was the square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and I had had enough, right? And I was like, God, rescue me. And I told him what I wanted. And then September 7th, he rescued me. And I was able to exit from corporate very gracefully. And I'm very blessed by my experience in corporate. It was an amazing journey. I traveled the world and everything, right? And all of that stuff is utilized today. But now I'm really getting passionate about the mental well-being of people, because 1 in 5 adults are suffering from a mental illness and they're not getting the help. So we might be sitting in a circle of 5 people, and at least one of those people in there are going through some stuff. So when I think about launch this family entertainment park, I wish people would stop thinking it's just for children. Like, I will go and play laser tag just so I can laugh. We'll do a community effort and serve others just so we can take our minds off of our stuff. Right? So my journey and my relationships, it's just been kind of picking and choosing, but now I'm becoming more vocal about it because I know so many people are hurting. And if my life can be an example of hope and what you can do, even though you still can't survive. And so that's why I just want to be used right now.
Thank you so much for tuning in to part 1 of our mental health series here on Chats with Chelsi. I've experienced anxiety, I've experienced depression numerous times, and my journey has been one that has had stigmas around it. I'll be sharing more about my journey over on my blog at lifewithchelsi.com, so be sure you're subscribed. Next week, these 3 incredible women will be sharing how their mental illness affected their relationships. We continue with honesty, transparency, and just the truth of their journey. So I hope you will join us. Be sure to share this episode with a friend or family member, and join us back next week here at Chats with Chelsi. Be sure you're subscribed on YouTube, as well as you're subscribed to my blog at lifewithchelsi.com. You have a great week, and know that we're thinking about you and want you all to be mentally well. Have a great week.